Princess Lyra of Viral was trained not to flinch. Not when blades rang near her throat. Not when crowds screamed her name in hatred. Not even when the sky burned. Yet her pulse betrayed her the moment the human soldier lifted his head and met her eyes. She stood frozen at the edge of the detention chamber, fingers curled tightly inside the silk folds of her ceremonial cloak. The room smelled of scorched metal and antiseptic sap. The war had reached even this place, even her. Lyra had expected a monster. That was what humans were supposed to be, loud, brutal creatures who shattered planets and laughed while doing it. That was what the elders said, what the broadcasts showed, what the war demanded she believe. But the man before her did not roar. He did not beg. He did not even look afraid. He knelt in restraint cuffs made for creatures twice his size, blood dried dark along his temple. His uniform was torn and burned, marked with symbols she did not recognize. One eye was swollen shut. The other, clear, sharp, impossibly calm, locked onto her with startling intensity. Princess Lyra felt her breath catch. This was wrong. She had come to interrogate a prisoner. Instead, she felt like prey. "State your name," she commanded, forcing her voice steady. The translator field hummed softly. The human blinked once, slowly, then he spoke. "Adam." Just that, no title, no fear, no defiance. Her advisors shifted behind her, uneasy. One of them clicked a warning under his breath. Lyra lifted a hand, silence fell. Adam tilted his head slightly, studying her as if she were the curiosity. His gaze moved over the crystal circlet at her brow, the ceremonial armor woven from light thread, the insignia of her royal blood. "So," he said quietly, "you're the princess." Her composure cracked just a hair. She hated that he knew. "You will address me properly," she said. A faint smile touched his mouth. It was tired, crooked, human. "Right, sorry," Adam murmured, "princess." The way he said it was not mocking. It was almost gentle. Lyra felt heat rise along the ridges of her cheeks, an alien reaction she despised. This was dangerous. She circled him slowly, boots echoing against the chamber floor. Each step brought new details into focus. The tremor in his hands he tried to hide, the way his shoulders remained squared despite the pain, the disciplined stillness of a trained soldier refusing to break. "You were captured during the border skirmish," she said. "Your unit destroyed 3 Viralian transports." Adam's jaw tightened. "They fired first." The advisors hissed in outrage. Lyra raised her hand again. "You invaded our space." "We followed a distress signal," Adam replied, his voice hardened. "A civilian one." Lyra stopped walking. "That was not in the report." She turned sharply toward her chief tactician. "Explain." The tactician's eyes flickered, too fast. Lyra felt something cold settle in her chest. She looked back at Adam, searching his face for deception. She found exhaustion, pain, and something else. "Grief." "Who sent the signal?" she asked softly. Adam hesitated. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his expression. "A child," he said. "Your people's small blue markings, crying." The chamber went very still. Lyra's heart stuttered. No, that was impossible. Viralian children were never near the border zones, never. Yet the image rose unbidden in her mind. A frightened voice, a broken beacon. "You're lying," she whispered. "I wish I were," Adam replied. Their eyes locked. In that moment, Lyra felt the weight of something immense shift beneath her feet, like standing on a fault line just before it split. "You expect me to believe you risked your life for an enemy child?" she asked. Adam met her gaze without hesitation. "I'm human," he said simply. "That's what we do." Her breath left her in a slow, silent rush. No arrogance. No demand for mercy. Just truth spoken like fact. Alarms suddenly blared through the palace corridors. An attack warning. The chamber lights flickered crimson. Lyra's advisors shouted orders, panic breaking their discipline. Adam looked up sharply. "That's not your fleet," he said. Lyra turned toward him, pulse racing. "How would you know?" she demanded. He smiled again, this time grim. "Because they're coming for you," he said, "and if you don't unlock these restraints right now." The floor trembled. "You won't survive the next 5 minutes." Lyra stared at him, heart pounding, composure shattering like glass. For the first time in her life, she did not know who the enemy was. And for the first time, she realized the human soldier before her might be the only one telling the truth. The floor shook again, harder this time. Dust fell from the vaulted ceiling like gray snow. Somewhere deep within the palace, metal screamed as shields powered up too late. Princess Lyra did not move. Every instinct drilled into her since childhood screamed one command: do nothing. Royal blood did not gamble. Royal blood waited behind walls while others bled. And yet her eyes were locked on Adam. The human watched the ceiling, counting seconds in his head. She could see it in the tight rhythm of his breath. Lyra, her chief tactician, snapped. He dared to use her name only in emergencies. "We must evacuate now." She did not answer. "If you free him, you will be committing treason," another advisor hissed. Adam finally looked back at her. His voice was calm but urgent. "Your eastern shield node is failing. That tremor wasn't an impact, it was a collapse." Her heart skipped. "That sector is classified," she said. He gave a humorless exhale. "Your architecture patterns are." Lyra stepped closer. Too close. She could smell smoke and blood and something unfamiliar, iron and ozone and human skin. "How do you know this?" she demanded. "Because my people already died there," Adam said quietly. "And now something worse is coming through the hole they left." Silence swallowed the room. Lyra searched his face again, desperately this time. She found no triumph, no satisfaction. Only warning. Another explosion rocked the palace. The lights went out. Emergency luminescence flared, bathing the chamber in cold blue glow. A scream echoed down the corridor. Lyra's hand trembled as she reached for the restraint control. "Princess," the tactician said sharply, "if you do this." She pressed the panel. The cuffs disengaged with a heavy clack. For half a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then Adam surged forward. Several guards raised their weapons. "Stand down," Lyra shouted. Adam stopped instantly, hands raised. He did not run, he did not attack. He bowed his head. "Thank you," he said. The simplicity of it stunned her. "Don't thank me yet," Lyra replied, forcing steel into her voice. "If you betray us, I will personally." "Die," Adam finished. "Fair." He straightened, swaying slightly as blood rushed back into his limbs. Despite his injuries, he moved with purpose, already scanning exits, listening. "They're not attacking the palace directly," he said. "They're drawing your fleet away." Lyra frowned. "For what?" Adam's jaw tightened. "For you." The words hit harder than any explosion. "I'm not important enough." "Yes, you are," he interrupted. "To them." Another tremor, this one closer. Lyra swallowed. "Who is they?" Adam hesitated. "That," he said, "is the part I was hoping I'd be wrong about." A new sound cut through the chaos. Not an alarm, not a weapon. A low, thrumming resonance that made Lyra's bones ache. Her people froze. "What is that?" she whispered. Adam's face went pale. "Hunters," he said. "They follow wars, they don't care who wins." The tactician scoffed nervously. "Impossible, no such species exists." Adam met his eyes. "They erase evidence." The palace shuddered violently. Cracks raced up the walls like lightning. Lyra felt fear bloom fully for the first time, not for herself, but for everything she had believed was safe. "Where do we go?" she asked. Adam looked at her, really looked at her, as if weighing her worth in a single glance. "There's a service tunnel beneath this wing," he said. Old, unshielded, ugly. Unacceptable, an advisor protested. It'll keep you alive, Adam replied flatly. Lyra nodded once. Lead us. They ran. Alarms wailed as the corridor filled with smoke. Servants and guards scattered in panic. Adam moved at Lyra's side, steadying her when the floor lurched, shielding her without thinking when debris fell. She noticed. Every time. At the tunnel entrance, a blast hurled them forward. Lyra hit the ground hard, breath knocked from her lungs. Adam was over her instantly, one arm braced protectively around her head. Stay down, he shouted. Something massive passed overhead, its shadow rippling across the walls. Lyra clutched Adam's sleeve, terror burning away her last fragments of composure. What are they? She whispered. Adam did not answer right away. When he did, his voice was grim. The reason humans don't leave survivors, he said, and the reason I was sent to stop them. Lyra stared up at him, heart racing. In that moment, she realized she had not freed a prisoner. She had unleashed a secret. And whatever was coming for her. The human soldier was now standing between it and her life. The tunnel was narrow. Dim emergency lights flickered, casting long, wavering shadows on the walls. The air smelled damp and metallic, a sharp contrast to the sterile palace halls. Lyra's pulse was still hammering, and she couldn't shake the feeling that every sound, every drip of water, every distant rumble was amplified in this confined space. Adam moved ahead of her, cautious but unhesitating. Even injured, he navigated the twists and turns like a predator familiar with the terrain. Lyra struggled to keep pace, her ceremonial boots clanging awkwardly on the grated metal floor. Her cloak, still scorched at the edges, clung uncomfortably to her back. Stay close, Adam whispered over his shoulder. His voice was calm, but there was tension threading through it like a knife. I can manage, she snapped, though her throat was dry. She hated sounding weak, hated that she sounded frightened. Adam didn't answer, he just moved faster. Lyra followed, silently cursing herself for the rapid heat rising to her face every time she saw him. He smelled like sweat and smoke, and somehow that scent unnervingly comforted her. She told herself it was foolish. She was the princess of Viral, trained in diplomacy, battle, and survival, not in fascination with a human soldier. A sudden screech echoed down the tunnel. Lyra froze. Adam reacted instantly, pressing her back against the wall. She felt his arm brush hers, close. They're tracking us, he murmured. Who, the humans, or... Lyra didn't finish. The thought of those hunters, the creatures Adam had described, loomed over her mind like a storm cloud. Adam's jaw clenched. Hunters, they follow heat, movement, and fear, and right now you're a beacon. Lyra's stomach dropped. A beacon. Royal blood gives off a signal, he explained, his voice low. It's biological, they can sense it, and I think they like it. She swallowed hard. That sent a shiver down her spine. Even in her training, she'd never imagined a predator could track a life force the way Adam described. They pressed deeper into the tunnel. The emergency lights flickered and died, leaving them in near-total darkness. Lyra's hand instinctively reached for Adam's sleeve. Her fingers brushed his arm. He froze for a split second, then kept moving, guiding her forward. Why are you helping me? She asked abruptly, the words tumbling out before she could stop herself. You're my prisoner, the one who killed my people. Why? Adam didn't answer immediately. He glanced at her, one eye catching the faint reflection of light. There was a weight in that gaze, something raw and real. Because, he said finally, not all humans are the enemy. Some of us, we do what's right, even when it's dangerous, even when it costs everything. Lyra's chest tightened. She wanted to argue, wanted to remind him that she had been taught to distrust humans, but the words wouldn't come. A distant rumble shook the tunnel, louder this time. Lyra stumbled and almost fell. Adam caught her effortlessly, holding her against him. She felt his warmth, smelled his scent, and for a brief, shocking moment, she forgot the war, the hunters, the palace alarms. Her heart betrayed her, thudding audibly against her chest. She pulled back slightly, realizing how close they were. She could see the strain in his face, the dirt and blood, the unwavering focus. And beneath all that, something softer, A calm, a resolve, a subtle courage that drew her in despite everything. "We need to find a safe room," Adam said, his voice breaking through her momentary lapse. "The tunnel isn't secure all the way." Lyra nodded, forcing herself to focus. She couldn't let her curiosity, or whatever this strange connection was, distract her now. Lives were at stake, her people, Adam, herself. The tunnel opened into a small chamber long abandoned. Cracked tiles littered the floor. Ancient machinery hummed quietly, though most of it was dead. Adam moved to the corner, scanning for signs of intrusion. Lyra pressed herself against the wall, chest still racing. Adam's gaze caught hers again. There was a strange intensity in it, something unspoken. He held her eyes for a moment longer than necessary, and she felt a pulse of something. Recognition, understanding. Then the sound came, a soft, eerie scraping, almost deliberate, almost curious. Lyra's eyes widened. They found us. Adam went rigid. "No," he whispered. "They already knew where we were. That sound, it's them testing." The chamber went cold. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Lyra's mind raced. Every strategy she'd learned in the palace now felt useless. Every rule she'd been taught seemed fragile and meaningless in the shadow of this unknown predator. And yet she wasn't alone. She glanced at Adam. The human soldier, the man who was supposed to be her enemy, stood ready, waiting, watching, protecting. Her chest tightened again, and she realized, with both fear and something far more complicated, that for the first time in her life, she felt the stirrings of trust. And maybe, just maybe, something more. A shadow flickered across the chamber wall. The scraping grew louder. And Adam whispered almost to himself, "Stay close. No matter what happens next, stay close." Lyra nodded. She couldn't look away from him. And the hunters outside, whatever they were, waited patiently, knowing they had caught more than prey. The game was only beginning. The scraping grew louder. Shadows shifted along the cracked walls of the abandoned chamber, stretching and contorting in impossible ways. Lyra's pulse thumped in her ears. She had faced wars, assassins, and political betrayals, but nothing had prepared her for this. Adam crouched low beside her, eyes scanning every inch of the room. His hand hovered near his sidearm, fingers twitching as if the weapon was already in his mind before his body moved. "They're circling," he whispered. "Not attacking yet, testing." Lyra swallowed hard. Her hands were clammy, but she forced herself to stay silent. She watched him, nodding the tension in his shoulders, the steady breath that belied fear. Somehow in this claustrophobic, death-laced chamber he exuded control, calm, and she hated that it made her chest tighten. A sudden gust of air made the flickering lights dance. Lyra stumbled, catching herself against the wall. A shadow moved unnaturally across the floor. "Now," Adam hissed. Before she could question him, he surged forward. Quick, precise. He slammed a rusted grate onto the floor, creating a trap. A low growl responded, vibrating the chamber like distant thunder. Lyra froze. She had no idea what Adam had done, but instinctively she crouched, ready to move. Her royal training had taught her strategy, but survival here required more than textbooks. The first hunter lunged. It wasn't a creature she had ever imagined. 4 limbs, sleek black armor like skin, eyes like molten amber. Its head split into jagged plates that flexed as it moved, and it hissed, a sound that made her blood run cold. Adam rolled to the side, grabbing a rusted pipe and swinging with perfect accuracy. The hunter shrieked, recoiling. Lyra's eyes widened. He was fearless, even after everything he'd endured. The next hunter dropped from the ceiling, faster than she could blink. Instinctively, she reached for her ceremonial dagger, a relic she had been taught to carry for honor, not practicality, and stabbed blindly. The creature hissed, recoiling just enough for Adam to tackle it. They moved together, a strange, uneasy rhythm forming without words. Adam handled the hunters with trained efficiency, but Lyra noticed something else. He protected her, anticipating attacks before they came, shielding her with his body whenever possible. Her heart refused to calm. Every time his arm brushed hers, every time she glimpsed the determination in his gaze, she felt something she had never experienced before: connection. A hunter lunged at her again. Lyra froze, terror rooting her to the spot. Adam was there instantly, catching the creature midair with a swift kick, sending it sprawling. "You're not going to die," he said, voice sharp. "Not while I'm here, understand?" Lyra's throat tightened. I understand," she whispered. The hunters didn't retreat. They were smart, methodical. Lyra could feel it, their intelligence, their patience, their hunger. And yet Adam seemed to read them like a chess game, predicting moves before they happened. For the first time, she realized the difference between humans and Virelians. Humans weren't faster or stronger, at least not inherently, but they adapted, improvised, and faced impossible odds without hesitation. And this human, this soldier, was living proof. Another hunter skidded into the chamber from the shadows, and Adam sprang forward to intercept it. Lyra stumbled back, breath-catching. She could see the lines of strain across his face, the subtle bruising that had already formed on his arms and torso. She wanted to reach out, to help, to do something, but she realized she didn't need to. He had this. Yet the truth sank in like ice water. She was utterly dependent on him, for her survival, for guidance, for protection. And that terrified her more than the hunters ever could. A loud crash echoed from deeper in the tunnel. Both of them froze. The hunters hesitated. "They're hurting us," Adam said, voice tense. "Not attacking directly. They want to drive us somewhere else." Lyra's stomach dropped. "Where?" Adam didn't answer immediately. His eyes scanned the dim corridor, assessing every escape route, every weak point. Then he looked at her, and for the first time his expression softened, not the hardened soldier, but the man behind the armor. "If we survive this," he said quietly, "we need to trust each other completely." Lyra's breath hitched. Her chest felt too tight. The hunters were still circling, but in that moment everything else, the war, her pride, her royal training, faded into insignificance. All she could do was look at him. And hope. The hunters moved closer, shadows rippling across the walls. Adam grabbed her hand, his grip firm, grounding. "Ready?" he asked. Lyra nodded, swallowing fear. She didn't know if she was ready, but she knew she had no choice. Adam pulled her into the next section of the tunnel. Darkness swallowed them both. And behind them the soft scraping resumed, patient, relentless, and impossibly intelligent. Lyra realized with a jolt the true test was only beginning. The tunnel narrowed. Lyra could barely see her own hands in front of her, let alone the hunters stalking them. Her heart raced, her lungs burned, and every instinct screamed to run blindly. But Adam's steady hand on her shoulder stopped her. "Slow," he whispered. "Breathe, listen." Lyra followed, forcing herself to match his calm, though every fiber of her being screamed panic. The scraping noises grew louder, sharper, closer. The hunters were surrounding them, circling like predators sizing up their prey. Adam motioned for her to crouch behind a metal support beam. "We use their shadows against them, make them hesitate." "How?" she asked, voice tight. He glanced at her, eyes serious. "Distract them, lead one into the trap." Lyra's stomach dropped. The trap was dangerous. She might get hurt, she would get hurt, but he trusted her. She had no choice but to trust him back. A hunter lunged from the shadows. Lyra stepped forward, heart hammering, and slammed a loose panel into its path. Sparks flew as the creature collided with metal. It hissed and recoiled. Adam moved like liquid, striking with precision. His fist caught the hunter mid-pounce, sending it sprawling across the floor. Lyra stumbled back but didn't fall, adrenaline pushing her forward. "Good," Adam hissed. "Keep moving." The next hunter dropped from above, landing with a heavy thud. Lyra felt the vibration through the floor. She ducked instinctively, and Adam was there, behind her, beside her, shielding her from the attack. The heat of his body pressed against hers for a moment, enough to make her heart stutter. She pulled back, embarrassed, but there was no time to dwell. "They're learning," Adam said, eyes scanning the shadows. "Each move we make teaches them. We have to stay unpredictable." Lyra nodded, pushing fear aside. She realized something incredible. She could fight alongside him. They were becoming a team. Every glance, every movement, every instinct seemed to sync. A hunter lunged from the side. Lyra spun instinctively, grabbing a loose pipe and striking. Sparks flew as she connected, and the creature yowled in pain. Adam didn't pause. He slammed another hunter into the wall, then grabbed her arm. "Move," he shouted, pulling her toward a wider section of the tunnel. Lyra's legs burned, her chest ached, but she kept pace. Her hands brushed against Adam's more than once. Every time her body shivered despite herself. The proximity was electrifying, dangerous, forbidden, yet somehow it grounded her in the chaos. They reached a broken service elevator, cables hanging like vines. Adam surveyed it. "We can use this," he said. "It'll get us above the main tunnel network, less room for them to maneuver." Lyra swallowed her fear. "And if it collapses?" He gave her a small, grim smile. "Then we fall together." Her pulse skipped. Fall together. Not leave, not survive separately, together. Something about that word "together" made her chest ache in ways she couldn't name. The hunters were closing in. The scraping was deafening now, a chorus of clicking claws and guttural hisses. Lyra gripped Adam's arm, and he guided her onto the elevator platform. He worked quickly, restoring emergency power. Sparks flew, metal groaning under stress. Lyra held her breath as the platform shuddered, lifted slowly, then faster. The hunters screeched, striking at the walls, claws scraping uselessly against the reinforced metal. Lyra dared a glance at Adam. His face was smeared with sweat and grime, but his eyes, clear, sharp, unwavering, were fixed on the advancing shadows. "You're remarkable," she said, voice barely audible over the shrieking. He glanced at her, brow raised, a flicker of surprise in his eye. "You're not so bad yourself," he replied, voice low, almost teasing. Her heart skipped again. Not now, not here. But the words lingered in the tight space between them, in the heat and the terror. The elevator shuddered violently. One hunter had latched onto a cable. Sparks flew. Lyra grabbed Adam instinctively, pulling him down as the hunter's claws scraped the edge of the platform. They tumbled together into a narrow maintenance shaft, landing hard. Pain shot through her ribs, but she pressed against him, clinging, holding. His hands were steady on her arms, guiding, protecting. Lyra looked up into his eyes. Her chest burned. Why does this feel like more than survival? Adam's gaze met hers, and for a heartbeat, everything else. The hunters, the war, the palace faded. Just the two of them pressed together, alive. A low rumble shook the shaft. The hunters had learned their path. They were coming for them again. Adam muttered, "We don't have much time. Ready." Lyra nodded. Her voice was gone. She didn't need words. She only needed him, and he only needed her. They surged forward into the darkness. And behind them the scraping followed, relentless, intelligent, and merciless. The maintenance shaft was narrow, twisting, and dark. Lyra's lungs burned, every step echoing through the cramped metal tube. She could feel the vibration of the hunters behind them, relentless, patient, closing the distance. Her fingers grazed the edge of the wall for balance, and her other hand instinctively sought Adam's. He was there, always there, matching her pace, guiding her through each sharp turn, each precarious foothold. Sweat ran down his face, but his expression was calm, composed, unwavering. Lyra couldn't help but notice the way he moved, not just with skill, but with a protective rhythm that instinctively put her safety above all else. "Don't look back," Adam whispered. "Just focus on me." She nodded, though her gaze flickered toward the faint shadows chasing them. Her instincts screamed to glance again, to assess, to plan. But every time she did, his steady hand on her arm drew her attention back. The shaft opened into a larger chamber, a forgotten control hub. Flickering consoles lined the walls, dust thick on every surface. Lyra realized with a jolt that this place hadn't been touched for decades. She also realized that the hunters had not yet followed them in fully. Adam scanned the room quickly. "We can make a stand here for a moment, buy ourselves time." Lyra's chest was still pounding. "Time for what?" she asked, voice tight. "For trust," he said simply. "If we survive this, we need to trust each other completely. No hesitation, no doubt." Lyra felt heat rise to her face. She wanted to argue, to tell him that trust was dangerous, foolish, and impossible with a human soldier. But every instinct in her body, the rhythm of their escape, the way he had protected her at every turn, screamed the opposite. Before she could respond, the chamber trembled. A hunter's scream echoed through the metal, followed by the sound of claws striking hard surfaces. The creatures were testing the chamber, assessing, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Adam moved to a control console. These panels might still have power. We can rig the lights to stun them, give us a chance to escape. Lyra watched him work, hands deft despite their sweat and blood. She was struck again by the sheer human ingenuity, the ability to adapt, to improvise, to confront impossible odds with determination rather than fear. "Need a hand?" she asked, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. Adam glanced at her, one eyebrow raised. "If you think you can handle this without electrocuting yourself, be my guest." She moved to the console beside him, mimicking his motions. Sparks flew, the panel hummed, and for the first time in hours they had a moment of control. The lights flickered violently, then stabilized, faint blue luminescence cutting through the darkness. The hunters recoiled at the sudden brightness. Lyra felt a thrill, a dangerous, intoxicating thrill. She realized she was no longer just a scared princess hiding in the shadows. She was fighting alongside him, living, surviving because of him. Adam glanced at her, eyes meeting hers. There was a brief flicker of something unspoken, fear, relief, admiration, something more. She couldn't name it, but it burned between them. Then, without warning, one hunter lunged from above. Lyra froze. Adam reacted instantly, stepping in front of her, blocking the creature with a strength she hadn't realized he possessed. "Move," he shouted, yanking her to the side. The creature struck the console, sending sparks and smoke into the air. Lyra stumbled but didn't fall. Adam's hand found hers again, gripping tight, pulling her back to safety. For a heartbeat, they were both silent, staring at each other amid the chaos. Lyra felt something stir deep inside, a recognition, a connection, something forbidden yet undeniable. "We can't stay here," Adam said, voice firm. "We move now together, no hesitation, trust me completely." Lyra nodded, swallowed hard, and let him guide her. Her body moved with his, instincts sinking. Every brush of his hand, every glance, every protective maneuver stitched a bond she hadn't expected. As they slipped into the next tunnel, the hunters' screams echoing behind them, Lyra realized she had already begun to rely on him, not just for survival, but for courage, for calm, for something she couldn't quite name. Something stronger than fear. Something dangerous. Something human. And with that thought, a sharp rumble shook the tunnels. Dust fell around them, and the air was filled with the scent of ozone and metal. The hunters were relentless. But so were they. Together, the tunnels shook violently. Dust and debris rained down as the hunters' guttural screams echoed through the metal corridors. Lyra's lungs burned and her legs threatened to give out, but Adam's hand was firm on hers, guiding, steadying, protecting. She had never felt anything like this, terror and exhilaration intertwined, heart pounding in sync with his. Ahead, the tunnel split into two passages. One led deeper into the abandoned network, uncertain, dark, but with potential escape. The other opened to a maintenance hatch above, a narrow climb, but the only chance to put distance between them and the hunters. Adam paused. His eyes met hers, and for a fleeting moment the world outside their bond ceased to exist. He was tired, battered, and yet unyielding. "We have to climb," he said, voice low, urgent. "It's the only chance to survive." Lyra nodded, chest tight. "And if we fall?" He gave a small, grim smile. "Then we fall together." Her stomach twisted. She wanted to argue, to run, to survive alone, but the truth hit her: she couldn't. Not without him, not now, not ever. They climbed. The shaft was slick, narrow, unforgiving. Lyra's hands shook, her fingers scraping metal. Adam's arm wrapped around her when she wobbled, lifting her just enough to regain footing. Each time their bodies brushed, warmth spread through her chest, distracting her from fear. She hated herself for it, and yet she welcomed it. Halfway up, a hunter lunged from the shadows below. Lyra screamed. Adam caught it midair with astonishing strength, slamming it into the wall. Sparks flew as claws scraped metal. The creature hissed, retreating temporarily, but another appeared, more massive, eyes glowing amber. Adam shielded her instinctively. "Get up," he shouted. "Move faster." Lyra scrambled, muscles burning, adrenaline propelling her forward. Every step was a battle against gravity, fear, and exhaustion. She looked back. The hunters weren't just following, they were hunting, calculating, relentless. At the top, the hatch yawned open. Freedom, or something close enough, was just above them. Lyra reached out. Adam's hand caught hers instantly, their fingers intertwined. "You ready?" he asked, voice low, serious, almost tender. Lyra hesitated. In that pause, the weight of everything, the palace, the war, the hunters, her pride, her life, pressed down on her. And yet here was the human soldier, wounded, exhausted, and still alive, still protecting her. She realized something she could no longer deny. She trusted him. She needed him. "I'm ready," she whispered. He nodded. Together they pulled themselves up. The air outside the hatch was cool, carrying the scent of smoke and metal and distant rain. They dropped to the ground, landing hard but alive. Lyra gasped, chest heaving, adrenaline fatting into a strange, almost tender calm. Behind them, the echoing screams of the hunters faded into the labyrinth of tunnels. Not defeated, but delayed. Enough. Adam turned to her, his hand still brushing hers. He was dirty, bruised, and bloody, yet somehow beautiful in the way only someone who had survived hell could be. "You made it," he said softly. "We made it." Lyra's lips trembled, but she shook her head, voice almost a whisper. "Not without you." He looked at her, his gaze intense, searching. "Lyra." She realized in that heartbeat that she had begun to feel something that went beyond trust, beyond survival. Something forbidden, exhilarating, terrifying. Something human. She began, but the words faltered. Adam stepped closer, his hand brushing her cheek. "You don't have to say it," he murmured. "I know." Lyra's chest ached, emotions threatening to spill over. She wanted to retreat, to fight it, to remember she was a princess. But she couldn't. Not now, not after everything. Instead, she let herself lean into him. Let herself feel the warmth, the protection, the connection. The hunters had taken everything from her, her safety, her certainty, but they hadn't taken this moment. For the first time in her life, Lyra allowed herself to surrender, to trust completely, to follow blindly, to feel without fear. Adam wrapped an arm around her waist, pulling her close. She pressed her forehead to his, breath mingling. They were alive. They were together, against impossible odds. And in that fragile, fiery moment, Lyra realized survival was not enough. Life was meant to be lived, for courage, for love, for connection. A low rumble echoed in the distance, a reminder that the hunters were still out there. But Lyra no longer felt fear, only determination. And with Adam by her side, she knew they could face anything. The storm was not over, but for the first time, she didn't have to face it alone. Their hands clasped tightly, and in the silence that followed, Lyra whispered, "Together." Adam smiled, bruised but unbroken. "Always." And for the first time, the princess and the human soldier stepped forward, not as prisoner and royalty, not as enemy and captive, but as partners, survivors, and something far more extraordinary,